We live in a consumerism culture, which means that we are bred to spend. We see people buying all the nice things. It's completely normal to go into debt in America to have stuff that you can't even afford. That's just the way that our culture is. And now, if you want to become wealthy, the first thing that you need to do is stop spending so much money. How do you do that? Stop buying things that you can't afford. The reality is we live in a society where it's completely normal to have credit card debt. It's completely normal to use buy now, pay later, or as I like to call it, broke now, broke later. I love the way Dave Ramsey says it. Dave Ramsey says, act your wage, and this is so important here, where you don't spend based off of what you deserve, but rather what you earn. And the easiest way to remember how to do that is a rule of 5. If you can't buy 5 of them, you can't afford 1 of them. Now what this is going to make you do is you're going to know what you can actually afford. Because in our society, just because you can't afford something doesn't mean you can buy it. You can buy pretty much anything that you want. If you want to buy a $1,000 laptop but you only got $100 in your bank account, no problem. Just put it on 18-month 0% APR financing. If you want to buy a $30,000 car but you only make $25,000 a year, no problem. We can put you into easy credit. That way you can buy this car that's going to take you forever to pay off. And by the time you pay it off, the car is worthless. And then you got to start the cycle all over again. This is where now you got to start changing the way that you spend your money. And it's hard because as soon as you start living below your means, everybody's going to look at you like you're the crazy one. What do you mean you don't want to go out to eat with us anymore? What do you mean you don't want to go to the club? Is something wrong? Are you sick? Are we not good enough for you anymore? The fourth thing that keeps so many people poor is what we're taught to do with our money. Like growing up, I was always told that if I want to become successful, I need to do 2 things. First, I got to become a doctor, because if you're a doctor, you make a big income. And then the next thing you want to do is save as much money as possible, because your savings are how you become wealthy. Your investments are risky. Why would you want to put your money in real estate or stocks? Because that's risky. You can lose all of your money. But if you save your money, you always know what that money is. If you put $10,000 in the bank, you can look at it tomorrow, it's going to be $10,000. You can look at it in 12 months, it's going to be $10,000. You can look at it in 10 years, and it's going to be $10,000 and 5 pennies because of the interest that they give you. But the whole idea is your $10,000 or whatever amount that you save is safe in the bank. But if you dig a little bit deeper, this is what financial education teaches you. The reality is your $10,000 is not safe, because the cash that you put in the bank is actually losing value. It's guaranteed to lose value each and every year because of something called inflation. Inflation is, well, it's become very popular now, but inflation is when the value of dollars go down, causing the price of things to go up. That's why things are more expensive today than they were 30 years ago. And now inflation has become a lot more popular, where more and more people are starting to learn about inflation. But the funny thing about inflation is I've been talking about inflation way before inflation was cool. Like in 2016, when I first started making YouTube videos, my first video to go viral was a video called "You're Guaranteed to Go Broke If You Do This." And the whole premise of this video in 2016 was if you save all your money in the bank, well, back then inflation was 2% a year and the bank was paying you nothing, just like it's paying you nothing today. Well, back then I would say you're losing 2% of the value of your savings each and every year that you save your cash in the bank. So it's a guaranteed loss. Well, today, inflation is a lot higher than 2% a year, which means that now if your bank is paying you less than what inflation is, you're losing value in the bank. Your savings are literally making you poorer each and every year, because your savings will buy you less next year than they will this year. Your savings will buy you less in 5 years than they will today. And so every single year you work to put aside these savings, but your savings are just walking backwards. It's going downhill because they keep losing their value. And this is where you got to understand how to save your money strategically, because there is a time and a place to save. You want to save your money for 3 reasons, and 3 reasons early. You want to save your money for emergencies, somewhere between 3 months and a year's worth of expenses. That way, if you lose your job, something bad happens, you have cash to fall back on, and that way you don't have to go into debt when something bad happens. Second, you want to save your money for an investment. And third, you want to save your money for big purchases. You want to buy a house, you want to buy a car, you want to buy some diamonds, you want to buy some nice stuff. Nice. but you need some cash to do that, so save money for that. Besides these 3 reasons, you don't want to be saving your money because now your savings are just losing value. And most of us, myself included, were told that if you want to become successful, just keep saving your money because that's how you become successful. That's how you become wealthy. Your savings are safe, when in reality, it is not safe because your savings are losing value every single year. And this is where you want to be saving your money strategically. That way you save your money with a purpose, but then everything else is being invested that it can grow, because now if you don't do that, your savings are going to make you poorer and poorer and poorer. And the reality is inflation disproportionately hurts the financially uneducated and the poor, and it disproportionately benefits the wealthy, the investors, and the business owners. And this is where you got to understand inflation isn't going away. It's been around for a long time. Even before it became cool, inflation has been around for a long time, and this is where you got to understand it's going to continue to be around, and you got to change the way that you use your money. But that starts with you changing the way you look at money, and that's all about the financial education, which brings me to the next point. You hate the idea of success. Now you might hear that and say, but Jaspreet, who in the world hates the idea of becoming successful? Now you might not directly think you hate the idea of successful, but if you hate successful people, you hate the idea of becoming successful, because there's a growing trend. I don't want to call it a movement, but there's a growing trend of it becoming very common and popular to hate the whole idea of somebody becoming successful. You hate successful people, you hate people who have money, you hate the idea of somebody becoming rich. But if you hate the idea of somebody becoming successful, how in the world do you think you're going to become successful? And this is where now you can start to dig a little bit deeper the more you start to scratch the surface, because now you can say, well, there's a lot of people who hate the idea of expensive things. I went to dinner with a friend of mine, and this was in Manhattan, and he looked at the prices at the menu and was like, how in the world can this restaurant get by charging $50 a plate of food? What a ripoff, what a scam. And this guy had a business. And, I let him kind of talk, and I was like, well, they provide a different level of service and value, and yeah, it is pricey, but it's nice. It's nice, especially if you can afford it. You're getting something a little bit different. If you want a discount, then go somewhere else. And, we started talking a little bit more. I don't like to really tell people how to think, but I started to push him because he's a good friend of mine. And I was like, how about your business? Like, how would you feel if people said the same thing about your prices? And he was like, people do. People always hate about my prices. They say it's too high. I'm like, well, maybe if you start changing the way that you start looking at prices, you might start changing the way people start looking at your prices. Because if you can charge a higher price because you provide a different value, well, now you're going to want people to pay for that higher value. And it starts with you changing your mindset, because if you want to become successful, you got to change the way you look at things first. You got to change your mindset before you can change somebody else's mindset. And this is where you got to understand that if you want to become successful, you want to become wealthy, you want to become rich, whatever word you want to put on it, you got to change the way that you look at success. And I think part of the reason that people hate the idea of success is because we always assume that if somebody became rich, somebody became successful, they must have done something bad. They must have cheated somebody. They must have done something illegal. They must have done something fraudulent. When in reality, yeah, some people that did that, but most people who become successful have done it through hard work. They did it through learning. They did it through sacrifice. And this is where now, if you start flipping the script, instead of saying, why did they do it? Understanding how did they do it? That way you can do it for yourself. It's going to change the way that you look at other people's success, and it's going to change the way that you look at your own success, and it's going to change the way and the things that you do to become successful. I talk about mindset a lot here, because minority mindset is all about changing the way that you think. Stop thinking like the majority of people. It has nothing to do with the way you look or your ethnicity or their skin color. It's all about the mindset of thinking differently. Because the reality is, if you keep doing what everybody else does, and in this case, it's hating success, it's hating people who have money, it's hating the whole idea of becoming successful, well, you're never going to do it yourself. You have to change the way you look at success if you want to achieve that success for yourself. If you enjoyed this short clip from my longer videos, here's another clip that I think you'll love. And while you're at it, if you're interested in learning more about how to start generating passive income, our team put together an amazing guide on how to start generating passive income for free. All you got to do is click that button right over there. Thank you for watching, and as always, keep hustling.